But Mrs. McMahon, you are also aware that in America we have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had before. You are aware that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. You are aware, I suspect, that teachers are dealing with kids who are literally homeless, kids who come from dysfunctional families where there is violence. Does it concern you in America that we are living in a society where the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck? And how do you think that impacts our educational system?
You could practically see Linda McMahon sweating bullets the second Bernie Sanders dropped the bombshell on teacher salaries. Bernie looked her dead in the eye and exposed the absolute absurdity of our system, expecting teachers to take on $60,000 in student debt just to land a job that pays $35,000 a year.
Thank you very much, Senator, for that question. First of all, let me say that I believe that teaching is one of the most noble professions that we have in our country, and we have so many good, dedicated teachers to help our students. I do think that we are trapping students often in low-performing schools, and that's why the president has such a strong policy towards school choice.
But you will agree, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you will agree that you can't just look at education. The truth is that middle class, upper middle class public schools in America generally do pretty well. But if you are homeless, if you were a homeless person and you had kids, the odds of your kids doing pretty well, and I'm just asking you, what do you think about the massive level of income and wealth inequality, the fact that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty? Is that something you think you might want to pay attention to?
Well, certainly, Senator, I do believe that we want to make sure that every child in our country has the opportunity to have equal access to a quality education. And the Department of Education really is not setting economic policy in the country. Well, we should focus on educating our children, and we should focus on it at the local level.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned correctly that we have many great teachers in America, right?
Yes.
If you as a businesswoman wanted to attract the best and the brightest, would you be starting them off after they leave school, maybe $50,000, $60,000 in debt with salaries of $35,000 or $40,000? Or would you say, we respect, you talked about teaching being the noblest profession. I agree with you. Would you agree with me, support my legislation that says no teacher in America should earn at least $60,000 a year?
Well, certainly the pay to teachers is up to the states where those teachers reside. I do believe we should pay our teachers fairly. They spend so much time with our students, and they should be well compensated for their job.
Paying them fairly, nobody in the world will disagree with you. I mean, the question is, if teaching is a noble profession, if teaching is an important profession, you know, should we be paying them salaries commensurate with the value that of the work that they are doing? So I'm asking you a simple question. Would you recommend to states, as the leader of education in America, that teachers at least make $60,000 a year?
I would certainly recommend to states that teachers be paid what is commensurate with the kinds of jobs that are part of their states. Not all states have the same living costs. Not all states have the same ability to pay teachers. But to attract really good teachers and to keep them, we should definitely pay them commensurate with the job performance that they are undertaking.
Millions of young people, low-income people, are finding it very difficult to afford to go to college, and they're leaving school $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in debt. Pell Grant program provides assistance to over 7 million low-income young people in this country. Can you guarantee to us, if you are made a Secretary of Education, that no student in America will lose their Pell Grant as the department is dismantled?
Certainly, the defunding is not the goal here. The continuation of Pell Grants, I'd actually even like to see an expansion of Pell Grants. I'd like to see short-term certificates for Pell Grants for students who aren't going on to four-year universities, who could have the opportunity to use Pell Grants for skill-based learning.
Right, so what I'm hearing you say is Pell Grant program will continue under your administration?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start with how Bernie set the stage, because he said something that I think a lot of us feel deep in our bones. You cannot look at education in a vacuum. You can't just talk about test scores and school performance without talking about the fact that America has some of the worst childhood poverty and wealth inequality in the developed world. He pointed out that teachers aren't just teaching anymore. They're walking into classrooms every single day, dealing with kids who are literally homeless or dealing with severe trauma and hunger at home. And McMahon's response? It was just classic corporate speak. She did the usual teaching is a noble profession line, but then immediately pivoted to school choice, because, of course. When Bernie pressed her on the economic reality, she basically said that the Department of Education doesn't set economic policy. Let that sink in. It's the ultimate cop-out, ignoring the systemic rot and trying to treat public education like a business that just needs a little more competition. That brings us right into the moment where things got incredibly tense: teacher pay. Bernie laid out the math, and honestly, the math is terrifying. If we actually want the best and brightest people educating our kids, why on earth are we starting them off buried under a mountain of student debt, making a salary that you can barely survive on? So Bernie asked a very straightforward question. Will you support my legislation to make sure no teacher in America makes less than $60,000 a year? And this is where McMahon really dodged. She wouldn't back it. Instead, she argued that teacher pay should be left entirely up to the states because every state has a different cost of living. She said teachers should be paid fairly based on job performance, but refused to agree to a basic national floor. It's deeply frustrating because we all know what happens without a real federal mandate. Wealthy districts thrive while underfunded working-class communities get left behind. From there, the conversation shifted to higher education, which is another massive pain point for millions of families. Bernie brought up how low-income students are leaving college with anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 in debt, and he specifically asked about the Pell Grant program, which helps over 7 million lower-income students actually afford school. With all the right-wing rhetoric lately about dismantling or stripping down the Department of Education, Bernie wanted a firm guarantee. Will these students lose their Pell Grants? Thankfully, McMahon did give a straight answer here, promising that continuing Pell Grants is absolutely the goal. She even mentioned wanting to expand them to cover short-term certificates and trade schools. Now, expanding access to skill-based learning is a genuinely good idea, but we still have to stay vigilant to make sure they aren't using that as an excuse to defund traditional higher education options for working-class kids. Did McMahon's answers satisfy you, or do you think Bernie was right to push her the way he did? Drop a comment down below, give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. Let's keep organizing, and I'll catch you in the next one.